A big fish has now hit the open market with the Panthers releasing veteran edge rusher Jadeveon Clowney, and I think he would be an excellent addition to the Chargers roster.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 9 seasons together, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen. We hope you guys loved the director show yesterday, and we have another good one for you today. To make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, the Panthers really got the second wave of free agency off and running when they released Jadeveon Clowney, the former number 1 overall pick. And honestly, I think he would absolutely make for a great addition to this Chargers edge rusher room. And the Chargers got a couple of new tight ends, Ronde, Gadsden II, obviously in the draft, and Tyler Conklin here in free agency. Which one of these guys has the best prospects of being that tight end one? And then we got some way too early power rankings, and I think you're going to like where the Chargers ended up on that list.
They're higher than where I slotted them when we did our power rankings, but this episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. It is Fan Mail Friday, and we wanted to turn the show over to you guys, and we had several questions about this specific player today when we put out our questions post. And I think it's very relevant to the Chargers because it's something that I think maybe you don't think they need, but I think there's a good argument for them going and trying to get Jadeveon Clowney. And we have this from Oregon Charger who says, I'm not usually one of these fans that sees a big name let go from a team and suggests my team go get him. However, there is a chance that the Chargers go after, is there a chance that the Chargers go after a Jadeveon Clowney? They do need to add a little more to the edge room. Personally, I think it makes a ton of sense. I mean, I think when you're looking at the Chargers edge rushing unit, I'd say that the pass rush from the interior, I'm a little bit more concerned about, but I do think that there is something to be said about adding strength, even if you don't, adding to a position of strength, even if it's not necessarily a huge need. I see Jadeveon Clowney as someone that could come in and make, major dividends or pay major dividends to you if you were to go sign him, because I think if the Chargers were to, I think he would be a clear upgrade over what they have right now as their edge 3 or 4 with Bud Dupree. You could probably save $3 million if you release Bud Dupree to go get this guy, and I think this guy has been much more productive, and I think he would be a great fit to what the Chargers have.
Yeah, and fortunately for the Chargers, they have enough operating cash, even with, the 9 draft picks that they brought into the table, to still be able to make some moves. I mean, according to Over the Cap, they're sitting right around 28, 29 million in cap space. So they still have plenty of operating cash to be able to bring in a Jadeveon Clowney if they think it's the right fit. And looking at, his career's kind of been interesting. After, getting drafted number 1 overall with Houston, he's been almost kind of like a hired gun. He's been with 5 different teams after Houston. And, he's kind of just been going here, going there. But hey, 2023 was a fantastic year for him. I mean, 43 tackles, 71 pressures, and 9.5 sacks. Like, that's fantastic production. And even in 2024, not too shabby. 44 pressures, 5.5 sacks. So looking at what he made, he's coming off of a 2-year, $20 million contract that he got cut after year 1. He made about $9.7 million. I think, this is a situation where you add a player that has a pedigree of being productive, that's pretty good against the run, a very high missed tackle percentage if you're looking for kind of, the drawbacks or the kind of negatives part of his game. But he's a pretty well-rounded edge rusher, and he has one of the best highlights in the history of college football where he just absolutely decleats a guy coming through the hole. That was pretty fantastic to watch. But Jadeveon Clowney been a very, very good pro in the NFL.
Yeah, I think the funny thing is it came against Michigan when he was at South Carolina. But
yeah,
with him, as far as what he would bring, like the Chargers pass rush, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but probably not as good as people thought it was last year, and they lost a couple of really important players. But just as far as a 1-for-1 swap with Bud Dupree, I mean, last season, not only did Jadeveon Clowney have 18 more pressures with less pass rushing snaps than Bud Dupree did, but he also had more pressures than Tui Tuipulotu did last season too. So this is a dude that has produced. This is a dude that, like you talked about in 2023, put up 71 pressures and 9.5 sacks. The actually important thing about that is he was in Mike McDonald's defense with the Baltimore Ravens after getting signed by Joe Ortiz's front office, right? So there are some connections there. The only thing the Chargers like signing more than former Titans are former Ravens. And I think that when you're looking at, a Tuli who we're hoping takes the next step, and I think he will, but also has disappeared for parts of seasons too and has faded towards the end of seasons before. And, an aging Khalil Mack to go with a rookie in Kyle Kennard, who I'm high on, but still a rookie. This is more of a win now move. There hasn't been a ton of them. It's not going to help you for the long-term future, but absolutely it makes that group better this season. I mean, Bud Dupree ranked 188th, 187th, and 176th in overall pass rush and run defense grade, respectively, out of 211 edge rushers. You can do better than that as your edge 3, especially because it wasn't that great of a pass rush last year, which I think is why you get this from Lex, who says, how concerned should we be about the pass rush this season? Khalil regressed and only had 6 sacks, down from 17. Joey Ampuna and Fox are all gone. Can we realistically expect Jamari Caldwell, Deshaun Hand, Naquan Jones, and Kyle Kennard, and possibly Justin Aboigbe to make up that difference? It's a really good question, David, because the Chargers were 22nd in pass rush win rate in 2024. Not what you would be expecting, I think, for how good the defense was overall. And I do think when you're talking about 11.5 sacks and 96 pressures from those guys that you're now, are now playing for other teams, that is going to be kind of hard to replace.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is for sure. But, they're going to need, the guys that they brought in. Naquan Jones coming off a 3-sack season, only 9 pressures, but that's really, really high productivity getting after the quarterback there. And then Kyle Kennard, obviously the rookie, 11.5 sacks in college football last year. If he's able to bring, even 7 or 8 sacks in his rookie season, I think that would be, incredible. That would be huge. And honestly, like, it may seem crazy, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. This guy's he's got real juice, man. Like,
but is he going to get on the field that much when he's not going to be the starter, right? Is he going to have a chance to get 8 sacks out there and have that many snaps?
I mean, for me, he's definitely in the NASCAR package, right? You got to get him out there and get him after the quarterback. But, they're also going to need more from Tier Tart, who's going to be in line to, pick up some of those snaps that Poona Ford left on the table there, of course, with also Deshaun Hand. And they're going to need a much better year out of Tuli Tuipulotu, right? He's kind of been waiting to be the guy, to be that guy opposite of whoever it was going to be, whether it was Joey or Khalil. And now we know that's who it is. So we need to see Tuli put together a full season and kind of eliminate some of those lulls and disappearances that we've seen through the first couple of years of his career.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to produce, replace really good players. And I mean, 3 of their top 6 pass rushing options last season. So when you're talking about the interior, that scares me a little bit more just because, Poona Ford, Morgan Fox, those dudes were the interior pass rush. Tier Tart actually got pressure at a better percentage than both those guys, but had about half the pass rushing snaps. So he goes into a bigger role. You have Jamari Caldwell, who's kind of a, wild card there. But let's get to this next one from Nicholas Petrilli, who says, if you had a crystal ball and saw that the Chargers signed Brandon Sheriff and Andre James beat out Bradley Bozeman for the starting center job, would you be able to sleep better at night? And the reason I bring this up is because you could add both, right? You could add someone like Jadeveon Clowney and also add a Brandon Sheriff or a Will Hernandez or potential upgrade. But to answer the question, yes, I would very much sleep better at night if that's what I thought the starting offensive line was going to be.
100%. I mean, you're getting a guy in Sheriff who has a very, very long career. And also, a guy that's only given up 8 sacks in the last 4 seasons combined.
Sheesh.
The only big issue with him is that he's played every single snap of his NFL career at right guard. So you'd have to get him to be okay with switching over to left guard and also be able to see that kind of same level of competency that he was able to provide throughout his career. But, it just in a nutshell, absolutely, I would sleep much, much better at night saying that you have pretty much all new starters across the interior of the offensive line.
Yeah, and, the Andre James thing, it does make me feel better that they went and got him, right? Their infatuation with Bradley Bozeman, who obviously has his flaws, even though he's like the ultimate team player, that scares you, and it gives him an edge as far as who's going to win that battle for sure. But yeah, if you would say at least I know that Brandon Sheriff or Will Hernandez is competing for that left guard spot, real actual competition there that you think could beat those guys out, that would make me feel a lot better about it. But we still have more Fan Mail Friday to get into, including if new rookie Ronde Gadsden II could become tight end 1 by the end of the season, and much more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your peer controller, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to go, diving into hundreds of premium titles, including EA Sports College Football 25, Call of Duty, as easily as you stream your favorite shows. There's so many games on Xbox Game Pass. I mean, you could go on for days and days, but one of the things I love about this is just the convenience. When you have a kid, it gets a lot harder to find time to play video games, and you might have to sneak into your room, and you don't really have to take the risk of trying to sneak your whole Xbox in there. I can just plug it into the TV of my Amazon 4K TV Fire Stick, and then it's there. I have my Xbox controller already, and when you're talking about travel, having something as convenient as this really is a total game changer, and you still get to stream all the great content that you normally would from your TV, Fire TV Stick, like Netflix and HBO Max, and all of those other things. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. David, let's continue this Fan Mail Friday, getting into a bunch of great questions, and thank you to those who hit us up at Locked On LAC on Twitter, on our YouTube channel, or at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, because we got a bunch of good ones today. But let's start with this one from Tucky Luciano on Instagram, who says, buy or sell. Forgot we wanted to use some buy or sells because we had so many great ones on Tuesday. We weren't able to get to all of them. But we'll mix in a little buy or sell today. Biggest Charger storylines and overreactions. This from Tucky Luciano, buy or sell. Ronde Gadsden finishes the season as tight end 1. So we know he's not going to start there. He's probably starting as tight end 3 at best. You know, maybe even Tucker Fisk starts before him, right, going into camp. Either way, though, this is something that he's saying at the end of the season. Could we be saying, hey, this dude is tight end 1? What do you think?
I don't know if I'm ready to put that level of expectations on Ronde Gadsden, just, from seeing, previous players at the skill position players kind of have all of the, hey, he's got to be the guy right away. And I just don't know if he's ready to do that right away in the NFL. I know that he did it while he was in college football. He had 2 60-plus reception seasons with 900-plus receiving yards and at least 5 touchdowns in both of those seasons. So he is a guy that definitely can be a focal point, but we got to remember, this is a much different level of football here. And sometimes those transitions don't always go as smoothly from college to the pro ranks. So, and also I just feel like the room now with who they have in there, it doesn't need him to be the guy right away. His skill set's definitely going to be utilized. There's no question. Guy that can really threaten the seam, that has great hands, that has some ability after the catch. He's going to be utilized for sure. But I just think now with the way the room is, I'm going to sell the fact that he's going to be tight end 1 by the end of the season.
Yeah, I think that's just too high of expectations for a rookie 5th round pick, even though obviously we saw 2 rookie 5th round picks become starters last season on the defensive side of things. With Ronde Gadsden II, I mean, it would have to become because of injuries, right? Which is the only reason Cam Hart and Tarheeb still made it to those spots anyways, right? Yeah. If Asante hadn't gotten injured, if Christian Fulton doesn't get injured, right, who knows when those guys would have taken over and how we would be feeling about them going into year 2. We might have no idea, right? It's crazy to think of that alternate timeline, but I do think that when you have, 2 guys who put up at least 449 receiving yards or more last year with Will Dissly and Tyler Conklin, it's going to be really hard to surpass that. And I think this is what the biggest issue is. To become a number 1 tight end, you have to be a 3-down tight end. Yeah. And I just don't think he's going to be there yet. I mean, physically, you're probably talking about more of a project to turn into kind of that all-around tight end. Does he block better than we expected him to? Yes. Yeah. Does he block better than someone who just kind of transitioned to that position? Yeah. I mean, I was impressed by it. But it's far from being, NFL-ready impact blocker type of player like a Will Dissly is or like a Tyler Conklin is. So if you're not getting in on those early downs where you can't, where a run and pass are both options, it's going to be really hard to take that role over, especially in your first year. And I'm about as bullish on him as can be. But like, think about how long it took Stone Smart to get on the field last year.
Yeah.
As a former quarterback, wide receiver that turned into a tight end. This guy has more experience. He did at least he had a couple ridiculous seasons at the collegiate level and was one of the best tight ends there. Stone Smart was never that. But still, he couldn't block well, and that's what caused him from being able to be on the field all the time. But it brings up a good question from Chris Saiz, who says, do you think Tyler Conklin can perform enough to be a Chargers tight end beyond this year? And that's a good question because Ronde Gadsden, I think the best case scenario for him is that he takes over that role in 2026. But the question now is, can Tyler Conklin have a good enough season where they say, okay, we do have a Ronde Gadsden, but man, we have to bring this dude back. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think Tyler Conklin is the pro's pro. I mean, he's just a rock solid tight end, a guy that's been able to provide, really, really good production. He's been on the field, has very sure hands, and, he's that there everyday type of mold that we know that the Chargers love. So I feel like, the way that, the organization is set up, and also I don't think it's unrealistic to expect him to have much better production with Justin Herbert as opposed to the ghost of Aaron Rodgers or Zach Wilson or Kirk Cousins, the guys that were throwing him the football beforehand. This is Justin Herbert in the prime of his life at 26 years old, where he's got everything kind of going for him. Another year in the same offense. I'd feel like, there is a good chance that Tyler Conklin could definitely stick around past this season.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think Will Dissly, is under contract for one more year after this one, right? Yeah. He's through 2026, so they'll have him around. Tyler Conklin is the guy who's supposed to be the receiving guy. He is this year's Hayden Hurst, right? I think this has a lot to do with the development of Ronde Gadsden II. I think if they were to bring him back, I don't know if it would be an indictment. It could just be he had a great season, right? If he has 600 plus yards and 5 plus touchdowns, it's like, okay, well, we can't let this dude go. He's just too productive at, the best tight end season that Justin Herbert tight end has ever had.
Yeah.
But I do think that what the problem is with this is that position is going to cannibalize itself. Because with that position, you have so many guys who can do something. Ronde Gadsden should have a role. He brings an athleticism to that group that you don't have other than him. So he might have a package. He should have a package if everything goes well in training camp. But Will Dissly is still going to be very heavily involved in this offense. He just is, right? He might not be the main primary pass catcher, but let's be honest. Most of the production of that group last year came off of Will Dissly's screen passes. So,
that's true.
He still is going to be part of it. Could he get another 1-year deal after this upcoming season? Sure. Could a Ronde Gadsden grow into being that guy for them and they could find a, tight end 3 later on in the draft next year? Absolutely. So I think for this, it's going to be hard. He's going to have to put up a really good season, but I think that he's probably the most underrated addition in free agency. The dude has legit skills and just came off of, 3 straight 500-yard seasons before putting up 449 last year with 1 drop in the last 2 seasons. So it's crazy. Someone that I think is going to impress and be a favorite for Chargers fans and is probably the more well-rounded of the group between just receiving ability and still kind of bringing that physicality in the run game. But let's get to this one here from JT the Night, who had another buy or sell we wanted to get to on Tuesday but couldn't. Buy or sell, QJ, Quentin Johnston, is going to be a better player with worse stats. He'll finally be able to run the routes he does best instead of being forced to work the sideline contested catches. I think he'll do more work with less targets. Dave, this is something we've kind of been talking about throughout the offseason and something that I would agree, I could absolutely see this happening.
Yeah, I think, there's no way that he's going to get 88 targets in this offense the way that the offense is currently constructed, like he got last season. And that was mostly out of necessity, right? They just didn't have the type of dynamic weapons or players to be able to kind of mix and match the way that they ultimately would want to. Now they have a lot of different flavors in that wide receiver room that they can kind of utilize in more specific ways, which is what you should be using for Quentin Johnston. With all his faults, right? He was 18th in the NFL in yards after catch per reception, averaging 5.7 yards after catch per reception. So you get the ball in his hands, he will do work. And he showed that last year. He showed that in his rookie season as well. Those are the type of opportunities you should be utilizing him in that is going to get the best value for the team and for him. Yeah, it might look like less stats, but I think it will be more productive stats for him and for the offense as a whole.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I have kind of a different angle on it because I do think that with the guys that you have now, you can use him as more of just a weapon, right? You can use him as more of a weapon as opposed to trying to make him a cookie cutter outside wide receiver, which is just never going to be and was never the best parts of his game. If he buys into it, this will be the case. This is what scares me. Quentin Johnson is a very emotional, hard on your sleeve type of player. He's the dude who said he was starting coming out of rookie minicamp or OTAs in his first year, right? And last year going into the season, he had reportedly been beat out by DJ Chark, who was absolutely a nothing burger in 2024.
He was a ghost.
He was a ghost. This is going to have to do with Quentin Johnston and how he deals with potentially a smaller role. And you have rookies actually coming to go get those snaps this year, but they're still rookies. So I still think he's going to get the snaps, but I think especially with Mike Williams on the outside now, Trey Harris now on the outside as an option, he should be able to be used the way that he is best, and that is as a weapon, someone that you can scheme up touches for, someone that you don't need to, beat man-on-man, man-to-man coverage all the time, which is how teams defended him and really kind of neutralized him last season. But we still have more great stuff to get into because the first power rankings from the Locked On Podcast Network came out, and the Chargers ranked 8th. Should they be in the top 10? That's higher than I had them at 8. We're going to get into all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about LinkedIn because as a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. And that's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in because when you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. And that is the most important part because it's not something you want to have to fill again in a couple weeks. You want someone that's going to work well in your ecosystem. And that's why getting qualified candidates makes such a difference. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. David, we still have more great Fan Mail Friday questions to get into, but thank you to everyone, as always, for making us your first listen and contributing to today's show. If you need a second listen, make sure to check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Show with Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino as they make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Now the draft is over, they can keep you up to date with everything on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts from. Let's get to this question, David, here from Matt Dahl, who watched the squad show, which when that comes back during the season, me and David will try to be on it much more. It's at a time right now that's pretty much impossible for us. East Coast bias, I will claim. East Coast bias. Do things for the people on the West Coast like me and David at heart. Matt Dahl says the 2025 early power rankings, they have the Chargers right now at number 8. Do you guys agree that they are a top 10 team right now? So this is something that all the Locked On NFL hosts get, and we make this poll. And all these guys obviously know their teams front to back, cover their teams every single day, just like we do. The Chargers came in at 8th, but the top 10 was pretty interesting. The Eagles, Bills, Ravens, Lions, Chiefs, this is the top 5. Nothing there that's really crazy, I don't think. That's where things get a little wonky. 6 is the 49ers. 7 is the Cincinnati Bengals, who the Chargers walloped last year when they played them. 8 is the Chargers, and then you have 9, the LA Rams. 10, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then just to give you a little bit of what's after that, since the question is the top 10, the Vikings at 11, the Commanders at 12. That one's weird. Green Bay at 13, Denver at 14, Houston at 15. So I think the Chargers are right around 10. I don't think that's crazy at all. I would say, yeah, that's right around where they are because this is kind of how I think about it. They should be ahead of the 49ers and also the Bengals, two non-playoff teams last year.
What were they thinking there?
I don't know, man. It's, you get very wide kind of array of these, when you put it out like we did. But what I would say, though, is if you told me that the Rams were ahead of them, I'd understand it, right? They won a playoff game and had the Eagles pretty close until it kind of got broke open in the playoffs. Washington Commanders, if you put them in front of the Chargers, I'm not with that run, the NFC Championship game, I'm not going to argue with that at all. The other one, I would say, the Buccaneers. And that's just because they blew you out last year. You were up against them. They showed who the better team was. So that would put me with the Chargers right around 9 because I think I agree with pretty much everyone else because I would say, hey, they should be ahead of Cincinnati and the 49ers, But those other teams, if you were to push them ahead, I wouldn't understand it.
I'm right there with you. I think the Washington Commanders, the way that they performed last year with a rookie quarterback getting to the NFC Championship game, they absolutely deserve some more respect for what they did. I mean, that was a tremendous run that they had. And the Rams, they won a playoff game. I think that they definitely should be up there. I think a lot of people would think the Houston Texans should be up there too, but
15.
I did see, some of the moves that they've made, and they talked about this on the squad show, which does make a lot of sense. They made some kind of head scratching moves, kind of getting rid of protection and instead of adding protection, which they definitely should have done. That was kind of
the guys
strange.
they added were sometimes worse than the guys that they had. It was a really strange, but they kind of went like the Chargers, where they added a ton of weapons. I couldn't believe they got both of those Iowa State receivers too.
Yeah, that was pretty wild. But I know there's one thing that I will stand 10 toes down on, is that they absolutely should be ahead of the Broncos in every sense of the word, because they swept the Broncos last year.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to hear nothing about that coming from their fan base, because to me, they ain't got nothing to say until they beat the Chargers.
Yeah, and to be fair, the Broncos host on that channel, Cody Borg, wasn't necessarily saying he thought the Broncos should be ahead of them, right? He was just saying he was surprised that the Chargers were at 8. And I think a lot of people would have that reaction to it. He said where the Broncos were between 12 and 14, they end up at 14, is about where they should be. I think the Chargers should be around 9 or 10. They're definitely ahead of the Broncos, though, I think, especially after sweeping them last season. And the Broncos had a good offseason, and they built a pretty good team, especially with the wasteland that situation was post Russell Wilson. So credit to them for, putting themselves there, but it's pretty clear the Chargers were better than last year, and I don't think anything that happened in the offseason would change that. But let's get to this next one here from John Clark, who says, if the Chargers debut a new alternate jersey this year, what are you guys hoping to see? Something's going to get released. The reports are out that the Chargers are going to have an alternate helmet. We've known this at least for the last couple of years, that something like this was going to happen. To me, David, there's only one choice here of what that jersey should be.
Yeah, for me, it's only one choice as well, and it goes back to kind of an ode to one of my kind of childhood growing up being a Chargers fan, kind of those glory years. And for me, it's the Navy uniform from 2000 to 2006, the uniform that LaDainian Tomlinson broke the touchdown record in. That one right there is absolute pure money. And as soon as they make it the alternate jersey, they can start printing money, because they're going to be flying off the shelves.
And this is a key distinction with this, right? Because they could go, Navy helmets with a gold bolt. We're looking for Navy helmets with a white filled in bolt on it. And what I also would love to see is, I know they go all Navy when they go Navy color rush. I love to see white pants with it, man.
Yeah.
I'd love to see the dark blue helmets, the dark blue tops, and the white pants. I think would be such a sick combination. Hopefully we get to see as many times as they are willing to do it. But like, powder blue just doesn't really make sense. I'm not buying that it's going to be powder blue. They already have the white. The only one that really makes sense is the Navy. And that's what I'm hoping. I literally have, give me LT setting the record uniform, please. I mean, that is what I think of. And also, when I went up and talked with the Chargers last year, right? And we can't talk about a lot from that, but I do think powder blue doesn't really fit the tough guy, philosophy of Jim Harbaugh. I think they're trying to go darker. I think they're trying to go edgier. It makes way more sense to go Navy in this situation. But the schedule release is next week, and there's a key question on Athir's mind. Let's hear from him.
Daniel, David, this is Athir. How many games the Chargers will have in prime time next season? I am going with 5, 2 Thursday night games. Sorry, Daniel. I love you. Charger country, let's ride, baby.
Athir, I feel like you want to. Do you have Thursday nights off? Is that what this is about? I feel like you want 2 Thursday nights.
Them off.
It's a good question, David. The Chargers were scheduled 3 last season. Obviously, they got flexed into a Thursday night football game. They didn't originally have one last year, which was kind of weird. But they went from 5 in 2023 to 3 in 2024. What do you think that number is in 2025?
I think they're going to split the difference. I think they're going to go with 4 primetime games in 2025. And for me, I think it's going to be the Chiefs, because it always is at least one time every single season, pretty much. I think it'll be the Eagles. I think the Commanders might be another sneaky kind of primetime game. And I think the Steelers could be another one of those primetime games. Whenever the Chargers and Steelers lock up, it always seems like something crazy is in store for us. So I think that's what it will be. I wouldn't be surprised if it's more. I don't believe it will be any less than 4.
I agree with you. 4 is the number I have. Well, and let's talk about this part. We know they're getting one, right?
Yeah.
They're opening the season in Brazil. So whoever that, and it could be the Commanders, it could be, I don't think it's Steelers because I think they have a different international game.
I think it might be the Eagles.
But I think Commanders make sense. I think Texans make sense.
Yeah.
Eagles went last year. That's the only reason I would say probably not the Eagles. I don't think they're sending him to Brazil 2 years in a row for week 1. But I would say that 4 feels like the right amount. I mean, they had 3 after a 5-win season last year, even with Jim Harbaugh. But I'm going to throw one in there, David, that I think is really, really something the NFL will consider.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Jim Harbaugh versus Pete Carroll.
Yeah.
The rivalry reignited. The Raiders kind of out of the depths of total incompetence, more than likely now that they have a real head coach. Getting those dudes back on in prime time, I feel like that has a Monday Night Football game written all over it. And I think they absolutely should, because that is something I'm very excited to see.
It's a good call.
But I also had the Commanders, right? That. I think for the Chiefs, what it could end up being is one of those late. I know we had another question. I forget who had asked it, but basically saying, hey, could the last Chiefs game in 2025 end up getting flexed? Sure. Like we saw last year, right? I mean, that is something that, hey, if these two teams are in it towards the end, maybe a little bit of a lesser Chiefs team, maybe a little bit more of a better Chargers team, they could be close near the end, right? So maybe that is something that gets flexed and gives them an additional game. But I think off the rip, getting 4 of them, I think that absolutely should be something that, they should do, if not more. And we'll see. I mean, primetime Justin Herbert, I think, has some things to make up for. So I think that if we see it, I think we'll see kind of closer to what we've become accustomed to with number 10 in primetime games. But don't forget, schedule release next Wednesday, May 14th. We will be here that night. Fingers crossed for a live show, unless David's neighbor, runs over his internet cable. Then, we never know. But no, we're hoping for a live show. Cannot wait to see what this Chargers social media team does for that schedule release. And thank God we have a team that's willing to get excited about. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. Thank you to the Everydayers for contributing to today's show at Locked On LAC on Twitter, on Instagram at Locked On Chargers, and calling into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924 to give us your 30-second Chargers question. We'll be back with you guys on Monday, but to make sure you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. It was a fun week. Love the director, love the conversations, and we know we'll be here on Monday with the latest news and the best, freshest Chargers content out there. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.